I haven't got much to report. We haven't played. It's a bit too far away from Bath, innit? And this weekend again, it's without the results are going, it's a bit of an unknown quantity, innit?
Do you know why there's been so many points, Alex?
Oh,
It's been nuts.
it has been nuts. There's all there's always there's generally like a, I wouldn't say teething process, but a period of time where teams are getting into the flow at the start of the season. Sometimes these opening games are a bit clunky, aren't they? In terms of how fluid they are. You normally see these kind of games towards the end of the seasons, don't you? When there's a bit more of a festival rugby atmosphere, maybe there's a bit less riding on some of them, so people open up a bit more. But we had the chance to look at most of those games, and I reckon 4 out of those games, our team was in ascendancy, where all the logarithms of the computers, which I've loved, have backed one team, and in almost every case, that team's lost, apart from the Bath Wasp game. So you can only put it down to a couple of things. Like, the referees have got it right in terms of the perception of what's happening in the breakdown, which allows for a quicker ball and for attacking teams to retain ball and a more entertaining kind of game. And they are entertaining, aren't they? They're no good for your stress levels as a coach, but they are end to end, and it's a decent spectacle, of which I've been saying the past few weeks. I think that's part of it. There's decent ambition from the clubs as well in terms of their attacking abilities, and then a lack of composure, like a real lack of, say, composure. Certainly control, because of the flick-flacking of scores. You don't hardly ever see that, and like I say, it's never happened in the past. Otherwise, the supercomputers would tell us so, wouldn't they? So, in this instance, knowing from where I've been, like, Sanderson's to let them get into that kind of a hole, 36-20 down. Having been there or thereabouts, will be kicking themselves and asking themselves why that happened in the first place before they start looking at their ability and their resilience to come back. And Gloucester equally so. When you're 36-20 up away from home, how can you not close a game out? How can Exeter, who were statistically, mathematically shown to have a 100% chance of winning, 100% chance. That wasn't Exeter, was it? That was it was Exeter. Yeah, and almost lost on the death there, and could have lost on another day. Probably should have lost with the field position that Quins had. So it makes for really interesting debate with the lads. It gives us a focus for this weekend on the back of a couple of decent performances, and that's one amidst the chaos and the physicality, one of control and composure, and sticking to plan and understanding what's next. Not getting too far ahead of yourself into the end result, which maybe a few teams did. I've been there, we've been there. 19 points up, man down. Or Exeter tried to man down away from home with 20 minutes to go, and we lost. So, I understand that on our part was, we thought we had the game won, but we're looking for a bonus point rather than understanding what we do in the next phase.
At this point of the season, this early part of the season, we're seeing teams starting to get their players back.
Yeah.
Again, that's another dynamic which is changing things. What are you looking like going into this one? Is Rafi fit yet? Have you got other guys who have not been featuring?
Yeah, Bevan, Rod's available. Rafi's probably in the week off, unfortunately, but only a week. Jason Woodward is back in the next couple of weeks. Manu's still fit. We've got everyone available in the back five who's played last week. So yeah, just really in terms of the big names, Bev Rod, who could come back into the fold, and obviously we lost Luke James last week. a 12 to 16 week injury, and he's been playing well at fullback. In partnership with his brother outside centre. So that's a loss for us, but it opens up a door, doesn't it? It opens up a door for a Joe Carpenter who's been in injury laden himself, and he's a bit of a rare talent, Joe. Like, we've all got big plans for him. He's only 20 years old. He was the best in his group. He's fearless under a high ball, and he's got a turn of pace that can light up and expose even the least fragmented of defences. So, yeah, we've got about 4 weeks now, haven't we? We've got about 4 weeks before these autumn internationals where you want to get the most out of them. And it's important that you keep rewarding your squad members who have performed and trained well. So it's a tricky bit of a balance as you go into this kind of longest stretch up until Christmas to make sure that you not rotate so much, but that they get your most out of your squad.
What's Luke done, Alex?
He's torn a lateral ligament in his ankle. He took a knock in the air and landed on the side of his foot, and it just went 90 degrees to the vertical and tore a ligament.
You told us last season about how England had worked closely with you on the GPS loading for Manu, and then he went and injured himself with England. And have you had those discussions again about the loading that this time when he goes for a squad session and hopefully towards the autumn tests, that there is going to be even more knowledge of what he can and can't do?
Yeah, constant discussions between our medical department and theirs. They've been taking all our loadings and how we've built him up to these recent games, what he's doing every week. So they know what we're doing, we know what they did. And there is an agreement in principle, which we're hoping to cement before the autumn international, before the Jersey week, which requires us to increase his loading slightly in terms of his accelerations, because that's what we believe. We both believe that had an impact on his injury. That's just one thing. The mechanics of his injury itself was something else. So it's not just about what he did in training. So we increase his accelerations as we get closer to the autumn internationals. And in compromise, my understanding is that they will manage him better than most, with more caution than most, with regards to aligning what he's done with us and what he's done with them. So there should be no disparity in a big jump and a big increase in terms of his workload in his training week.
People say, well, crikey, you're making England have to make a special case for this guy. Yeah, is he worth it? You'd obviously say absolutely. Is that the feedback you get from Eddie, that he's willing to make this so special, like a special case for someone like
It's
Manu?
not really a special case, Chris. Like, everyone gets individually managed and load nowadays. He won't be the only one. He's just that most high profile one, and so that's why we keep talking about him. But everyone's got their individual plan. Rarely is everyone got you know what I mean, like a stock training load that they have to do in the week.
Right, excellent. Thank you very much, Ray.
Cheers, mate.
Morning, Alex. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Kieran. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's been a good start to the season, so happy enough. In regards to Manu, you might not necessarily know the exact itinerary of hour by hour what the 3 training days involved. Yeah. Do you know roughly for someone like Manu what those 3 days will involve? Because there will be an element of anxiety amongst the fan base that over the last sort of 12, 18 months, Manu's been injured 3 times whilst away with England. So do you know exactly what those 3 days entail, not just for the whole England squad, but for Manu specifically?
We will do to the meter, yeah. What is ideal for him? Not at the top of my head, but we have an understanding. Most training weeks work on a pretty easy day, a really hard day, and a medium intensity day. In that order of the week. So it's when you end up doing more. So and we're very similar in England in terms of the high intensity days, the really hard day, and the medium day. So we're now questioning over one day, which is the start of the week on the back of a game, how much accelerations he does on that first day. That's my understanding of it. And that's therein lies the discussion, the agreement that hopefully we'll come to, and a greater understanding of how we can manage Manu. Eddie's calling me up, hopefully within today. I've told him on this press interview, and I've been trying to get in touch with him. So he's not like leave it to the medics. I really want to chat to him, not just about his training load, but about his game management as well. He hasn't played more than 4 or 5 games on a bounce for 3 years, so I think that's important. That you look after him on short turnarounds. You stay away from the 4G pitches a little bit. Not because they're any worse for him, but because that's where he's injured himself. The speeds are higher, the traction's better. So I just wanted to chat to him around that. So look, the aim is to get him peaking for a World Cup. That's the aim, not these autumn internationals. So even though we've got a very micro-centred focus on what he's doing over the next 4 or 5 weeks, we've got to step back as well and look at what he's doing over the next 7 or 8 months.
I think it might have been an interview with Chris over the pre-season. You spoke about Manu's future after the World Cup and said that already conversations were happening with him, with his agent. In light of the news coming out of Exeter that Sam Simmonds is going to France, and I think people might expect there to be probably a number more that will follow for that kind of post-World Cup at the beginning of a new cycle. Where are you up to in terms of Manu's future, and how, without putting pressure on him to have to make a decision, because that's not right, but how quickly do you want to know where his head's at, what he's thinking, so that you can then put plans in place if he does decide to take up a mouth-watering contract that is a reality that's possible in France or Japan? How quickly do you want to know that so you can start preparing for life without Manu, if that is the case next year?
The earlier the better, Kieran, and it's on my to-do list, actually, right at the top of my to-do list to go to Lim and have a cup of coffee with him and have a little walk. It's how we did last time. Went for a walk through Mac Forest, so I enjoy those walks. I come out of them wiser. It's right at the top there, because there's obviously been speculation in the press, and all of it's unfounded. But nevertheless, players see these things, and it creates white noise within the changing room. So I'm all for dispersing the fog and making sure we understand where we're both at.
So there's no sort of update as such in terms of, if you haven't had that conversation yet, where his head's at?
No, I haven't. I need to sit down with him. Look, at the moment, he's such a genuine person. If there was any inkling of him getting overtures or him being interested and it being a real possibility right now, I think he'd let me know, and vice versa. But we're just trying to get him on the field and get some form, and these I know these things detract from what you're trying to do week to week. So to some degree, we've just ignored it and focused on what we've been trying to do as a team. But it's right up there, Kieran, as it is with everyone who's out of contract, and the rest of them have been in the papers as well, haven't they, over recent weeks? So it's a constant.
I think it kind of, because of the change in rules about when you can directly speak to players, the recruitment seems to start. It's kind of weird probably for fans that you think you've only just started one season and you're already planning ahead, but that's the reality, isn't it? That you have to think about which players are out of contract, which players might leave, and therefore how that then in turn affects your recruitment for players, bringing players in a year.
Not just next year, like we've got a meeting tomorrow, a succession meeting where we're looking right to 24, 25. You've got to plan years in advance for the salary cap, and to some degree, because it's that well planned, there's not a lot of movement. There's not a lot of negotiating, bargaining that you can do in terms of what you can give them, because they have to be part of the jigsaw on a relatively rigid, well, it's very rigid salary cap, but one that's a lot lower than, as I've said before, what the European clubs, what the French clubs and Japanese clubs have to offer. So we're into that tomorrow. And that could easily give me an understanding and idea of how much we're able to offer Manu for his worth, which will be less than a French club. So that's the nature of it. It's the challenge of it. Yeah, it can only make up for that through infrastructure, support care, and these lads knowing that they can have a good life, and that does count for a lot, Kieran. Like, say what you will about the past organisation, likes of John Smith and Shalt Brits could have gone to Japan and they came for a lifestyle over the pound coin. So you are able to make up for the difference in salary cap through a bit of love.
On a different subject, obviously, huge blow to hear that Luke James is out for a little while. But that presents an opportunity. You've mentioned Joe Carpenter there, is the fact that he wasn't in the squad last night due to the fact that he's going to be playing on Saturday. And is that, I mean, you might not want to reveal whether he's going to start or not, but is that the plan, the fact that he didn't play in the second of the 2 Rugby Cup games in order to play on the weekend? And is the plan that he's going to get a run of games, or is it when Jason Woodward's back, because he's an experienced player, that you might kind of look to kind of play one and or sort of rotate between the 2 of them?
Yeah, I haven't got a strategy around that. Maybe I should, Kieran. You can read between the lines and make up whether he's starting or on the bench, because we've had different combinations with Sam James at fullback in the past, and that's worked quite well for us. In fact, this season we've done that. So that's for me to know, for you to find out. But whether or not Jason comes in, he'll earn it through merit, not just through credit in the bank. You know, he's a really experienced player, which is why he was brought in, because we've got 2 young fullbacks, and I felt we could learn a lot from Jason. And he's been brilliant. He's been a great lad. He plays the mouth organ. He's back. I think he's back to the kind of fitness that he was before he kept getting these recurring injuries. We spent a long time building him back up in terms of his mechanics. So he should be robust for us, Jason, when he does come back. And then that's all you want then, to be able to have that headache of a decision of, if you've got a couple of good lads in form and fit, you pick on form, especially during this international window where, you know, you're losing maybe a few of the lads who give you an edge, these internationals.
Cheers, Alex. Thank you.
Cheers, Kieran.
Hi, Alex. Just on Manu, can you see him not playing all 4 of the autumn internationals?
Well, I mean, that's a question I've got for Eddie, and whether or not he divulges it for me, I don't know. But there's a short turnaround, isn't there, between Argentina and Japan, and that's what I'm talking about. This game management, like, we're already planning for the short turnarounds and him not be involved for the most part. You know, like, some of it is scratch and sniff and see how he feels and see what his game loading's like. I think you have to be relatively flexible, but like what I've just said before, keep a longitudinal view, as if you want to keep this guy fit, then he has to be game managed, not just training managed.
Yeah, sure. And slightly offbeat one. Eddie was talking about ball in play time on Monday. How to increase it. Ball in play time, how to increase it. I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that. Is there any way they could increase ball in play time?
I haven't really put my head to it. I mean, it is increasing, isn't it? It is going up year in, year out. That's what the stats show us. Is this water break not something to? Is that not been brought in to stop people slowing the game down and to make sure that there's flow to game? Look, all the obvious ways, like, that people look to increase the speed of the game, and the teams that do well with that. You know, Quinn's with the quick taps and the quick throws. Exeter with the speed, which operate at lineouts, which is bordering on early throws. Scrum resets are important, aren't they? You can burn through quite a few minutes, as what happened against us and Bath down there when we were a man down, and getting control over that, or penalising it early, but you don't want to take the scrum out of the game. without getting radical, and looking for kind of rugby league style penalty kicks which become quick taps and stuff. I wouldn't be, I wouldn't have much of an idea. I have quite a lot of knowledge around my specific area which I've got to focus on at the moment, and it takes a good bit of time to start looking at blue sky thinking. What does Eddie say around this? What's the general opinion? You've been asking other people.
Yeah, well, he said one of the things that came up was conversion clock. Enforce that properly.
Yeah.
And how would your kickers feel about that?
I think they'd adapt. With every rule change that happens, the people adapt, don't they, and find new ways around it. These are all, so just enforce the laws as they are right now, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Great stuff, mate.
All right, pal.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Alex.
Is that right? Cheers,
See
boys.
you Saturday.
Cheers, Alex. Thank
Coming
you.
up Saturday. Coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, it'll be there.
Brilliant. We've got a whole menagerie of circus things going on the sideline. We've got a new match day guy, so there's going to be fire breathers, stilt walkers. There's going to be all sorts going on. So I hear. Try not to be too distracted by the.
I won't be. Thank you. So yeah, I look forward to seeing Sam on stilts.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to be seeing him on stilts now. Oh, it's terrible.
Cheers, mate.
All right. Cheers.
Bye, guys.